Saturday Soup on a Sunday at Raw Talk.
Welcome to this much anticipated episode of Saturday Soup on a Sunday. But soup on a Sunday, when it's been made on a Saturday, is often more tasty. The fibres of the meat are broken down, the seasonings have soaked in. So maybe this episode's going to be better than it was. I filmed it yesterday, but then I deleted it by mistake. Maybe it'll work out for the better. I'm just getting to learn how to use the equipment. I mean, at the minute I'm just doing it on my phone. Got a bit of gear I've arrived today, camera and what have you. So the production quality of these videos is going to improve, the content will become more assured, and got some plans for this, man. So your support is very, very much appreciated. Like, subscribe. Today's episode is about the 10 years that I spent touring, performing and recording with the legendary Jah Wobble. If you don't know who Jah Wobble is, he's best known for his work as a bass player with the post-punk super band with John Lydon, Keith Levine, called PIL, Public Image Limited. But he went on to be a musical explorer and adventurer, producing work for people like Sinead O'Connor, and as a real unique talent in bringing different collaborators together and creating really interesting music. The first time that I met the physical entity that is the Wobble, I was walking out of Stockport train station. It's like a tunnel that leads you out to a car park, and not the old one, the old car park, it's got like a cobbledy floor, not the new one at the other side. And he was there, just stood there, imposing character, like a big polar bear with a unique head and eyes. Now, he was there to meet me. He wasn't just there hanging around in the tunnel of Stockport station. He was there to meet me. I'd come up there to do a session for him. And he said, "Sean." I said, "Hello, Jah." And he shook my hand and I felt his strength. I felt his power. I instantly liked him. I felt at ease. Instantly. So we walked over to his motor, and it was a green Jag. Beautiful. And I've always liked Jags, man. Ever since seeing him on the Sweeney, or like Professionals, Bodie and Doyle, you know, Old Kent Road villain, he'd always have a Jag. Diamond jumper, sheepskin. Oversized Christian Dior glasses. You know what I mean? He'd have his wife there. "Oh, hi, Brenda." I liked a Jag. And Wobbles was class. Beautiful. I think it was dark green. Cream leather interior. Jumped in, and it got better. Put the music on. Great Expectations from the album Big Fun by Miles Davis. Oh man, Jah, I love this. Well, son, this is what we're going to be doing today. This is the kind of thing that I want. This and a bit of Don Cherry's brown rice. And I hear that you're the man for the job. So how did I get this job? It's a bit of a story in itself, really, that. Frog in my throat, not being castrated. I had made a bit of a comeback on the trumpet after one of my several hiatus. Is it hiatus or hiatuses? One of them. I jacked it in. And I made a comeback because my old mate Harry Brown, trombone player, with whom I've done lots of recording and gigging over the years, Jazz Jamaica All Stars, loads of reggae stuff, Terry Walker, Ty, loads of stuff. He called me up and he said that there was a tribute gig for Sugar Minor happening at the Ocean in Hackney. Now, I never performed live with Sugar, I recorded an album with him. I can't remember what album it was, but I did it with Ray Carless. So I came back and did this gig. I think it was Errol Dunkley, Luciano was headlining, Janet Kay, quite a few artists, really good gigs. We came back to do that. And in the dressing room beforehand, Harry said that a guy called Mark Leighton Bennett had been trying to get hold of me. And I think Mark called him while I was there. Put him on the phone, I think. And it turned out that Mark had tracked me down through Harry because he'd been in Wobble's band for a while, and Wobble had said he wanted to do this album, and he wanted a trumpet player. He wanted like a 70s Miles kind of thing, or like 70s Don Cherry, you know, that album with brown rice on it and all that. Mark recommended me. Now, I'd not seen Mark for about 10 years. Last time I saw him, it was at my birthday do, having a curry at Brick Lane, and Harry was there as well, actually. And he found me. Anyway, he told me that Wobble had these plans to do this album, and he wanted me to do it. And my first instinct was like, no, I've been off too long, man, my chops, I can't do anything like that. I can manage coming back and playing a few reggae parts tonight, but for some reason, I didn't let that sway me. So I agreed. And I got myself in, you know, as good a shape as I could for it, practicing wise. So when I got to Stockport, when I got to the studio, Clive was there, shakuhachi player, Mark, Wobble, and there'd been a guy there playing some tabla and laying down some stuff. And he had these rhythm tracks and it sounded nice, man. I liked it, really good. And it was just a case of going there, play, do your thing. A couple of takes, gone back into the studio where they're listening to it. And there's bits of it, you know, I'm used to it saying, I don't really like that, can we drop in? I said, no, you've done it, man, boom, done. Okay. And that was it. That was the first album that I did with him. And the next thing, he asked me to go and do a gig. So the first gig that I had with the Invaders was at Norwich Arts Centre. And to get there, I had to go around to the house of his percussionist, Neville Murray. And I'd never met Neville before. I'd heard about him, I think through his work with Working Week, but I'd never met him. Bum bum, knock on his door, I'll buzz his buzzer. It's the same buzzer that we used to buzz sometimes when we'd been on a gig with Wobble and we'd be driving home about 3 in the morning, and if Neville wasn't on the gig, Wobble would actually insist that we'd drive down the Salt Road, park up outside Wobble's house, and either he'd go or he'd get Mark Leighton Bennett to go and ring Neville's buzzer, so that when Neville came to the, you know, speak on his, what do you call it, thingy, hello? He wouldn't say anything, and he'd go, hello? Hello? And he'd be walking away and you could hear him in the distance as he walked up, hello? Hello? Very funny. I don't think Nev ever knew that it was us. But this is the first time that I met Nev, and he opened the door. The first thing he did was looked at me and he went, I like a jacket. It wasn't this one, it was a different one, but he liked it. And that meant a lot to me. And again, I instantly felt at ease with Nev. I liked him, man. And his place. And little did I know that that place was to become pretty much a second home for me in a few years. And Neville became what you call my shakabuku father. He introduced me to a Nichiren Buddhist practice. And he had a profound impact on my life. And also gave me a real model of the kind of heart I aspire to having. I'm some way off that yet. And he took care of me in a very practical way as well. Let me stay with him with my son. Encouraged me, spoke to me in a fatherly way about some of the trajectories I've taken myself on in life, and I had massive respect for him. I always behaved with total respect. I was with Neville. And I guess after that, I became a regular face in the band. It was quite a big band at that time. Invaders, we had Emi Watanabe and some of the Japanese musicians. George King came on board then. Great keyboard player, man. And we just had some really good times. Very funny. Right? Really funny. Bonded as friends, totally comfortable with each other. We knew that we respected each other's playing. And Wobble was like, some guys in that band that are very chopsy. Not me. Mark, Chungy, and George, virtuosic. I'm not. I'm more of an intuitive player. I guess I'm more like Wobble in some ways. But it worked. It worked. And over the years there really have been genuinely, objectively amazing, magical moments, as well as lots of drudgery and, some not so good stuff. But that's it. That's like, I'm sure with any band, even at the highest level, you're going to get that. I went to Japan with Wobble. He put a lineup together to do Metalbox again. So Keith Levine came back in the band. That was interesting. Really out guitar player, man. And it works. I really liked it. It reminded me of some of the guys that I'd heard, like New York guys. I'm not saying he plays like them, but it reminded me like Jean-Paul Borelli and people like that. Kind of this really metallic, like, out sound, man. Some of the things he played, it worked. Don't know if it was intentional or not. Don't know what he was hearing. But it was like, yeah. I really liked it. And we did Japan. Fuji Rock Festival. Beautiful, amazing festival. The only thing about that tour that was a bit of a drag was entirely Mark Leighton Bennett's fault, because he and the tour manager, Adamski Masters, he's a lovely guy. He's got a beagle. Well, he did have a beagle, big floppy ears. I think it had very salivating jowls, but it was lovely, nice little dog. And anyway, he was kind of a baggy mank, real nice character. And he was a tour manager and, took care of certain things. And him and Mark Leighton Bennett decided that they wanted to find this sort of mythical street in Tokyo that was meant to be like Denmark Street of Japan. I mean, firstly, why do you want to find the Denmark Street of Japan when you can go to Denmark Street anytime you want? Why go to Japan to go to Denmark Street? Secondly, they didn't know where it was. So we started walking through the Roppongi, quite good. Further out through these like residential districts. Next minute, when you've reached the periphery of the town, the city, we're on a dual carriageway. When we were there was a heat wave. We've come through the Emperor's palace. Looked at the turtles' heads, the castle, the lot. Full on Shogun style. We're at this dual carriageway. it could have been in Thurrock or something. Imagine Thurrock in a heat wave. Walking off into the distance, like the bridge over the River Kwai. It's all wavy with the heat, you know what I mean? Like blurdy. Walking, and I'm getting sulkier and sulkier. And more resentful, deeply resentful about it. Guys, what are we doing? Oh, it's here somewhere. Then when we got there, right, this street, it was crap. It was nowhere near as good as even as Denmark Street. Right. There was a music shop. It was a bit like one of them, like on Charing Cross Road. You know, like green plastic clarinets, cables. And I was like, what are we doing? Starving. And then they want to go to an Irish pub and they had chicken nuggets and chips. I was just so unhappy, man. And I let that be known. But you know, that was the only thing. The rest of the trip was great as ever. It was brilliant, man, spending time with those guys. Wicked music, laugh, looked after. And it all went really well. We did some more albums, more gigs, Glastonbury, the whole thing. But then disaster struck, really, for me and my relationship with Wobble. And it came about, I can trace it back to when he called me to come and do a session, a reggae session. And this singer he said he was working with, right? So we'd done a gig, can't remember where it was. He said, right, I'm going to chip you over and take you to this studio now over West London. Like around, I think it might have been near Chelsea Ground, Stamford Bridge sort of way. It was over that way. Off King Road or something like that anyway. I'm pretty sure. Take to the studio session, said what the dough was. It's alright dough, you know what I mean, a couple of hours. I went to lay down some trumpet. And this girl I'm working with, reggae singer. Sounds good. But as soon as I went in the studio, I'm telling you now, I did not like the vibrations, right? There was a lot of imagery and symbolism that just didn't sit with me. Skulls, vampiric sort of references, voodoo, you know, Luciferian kind of shit. I'm not really into this. I didn't think too much about it, but it made me a bit itchy. Not really at ease. Done the track, King of Illusion. I was listening to it, I was like, there's something about this. The lyrics, I don't get what it's about something, I don't know what it is, but there's something going on here. Honestly, right? Done, forgotten about. Thank you, Bush. And then, sometime after, months, maybe a year or so, I don't know, about 2013, we went back in the studio and did this album, Kingdoms of Fitzrovia. And when I got a copy of the album, there was a track on there, a girl singing. And I opened up the booklet, so I pictured this woman that was singing on the album. I thought she looked pretty, man, nice. But there was something about that photo that gave me a sense of, I looked at it, I thought, haunting, troubled, but also a feeling of trouble. And then the girl joined the band, and we got together and fell in love, right? Very early into this relationship, like within a couple of weeks, there's one evening, I'm at home in my flat in Bromley, just doing some ironing. She rang me, so I'm on the phone. She was talking, then she said a couple of things, and I found it so disturbing, right? Like, boom, electrifyingly disturbing, that I don't know if it's you're a Magdala. I've gone bang. Right. And all my arms were burning. Like sunburn, my arms, right? And then I stopped. I'm like, what? From that moment, for 2 years after, that feeling never went away. And within a matter of weeks or maybe, a month and a bit or something, the amount of weight that I lost was absolutely phenomenal. Shocking. I'd always been fit, always been trim, from 17, 18, and right up until that time when I'd have been early 40s. I've trained, I've boxed, I've been in really good shape, but I lost all this weight, man, and it was like, I was like Bruce Lee, but not good. Veins in the navel and everything, whereas that groove between your abs and stuff. And I've tried to get that in the past, but couldn't. It just dropped off me. I was really gone. And what she talked about was related to the occult, right? I'd never encountered anything like that. Didn't know bits. I knew bits from the African traditions, the African diaspora, and most of that comes through my experience of playing salsa and learning about Afro-Cuban music, and I know that there are various African traditional religions and syncretic religions in the Caribbean and in the Americas, and obviously in Africa. I knew bits about it, and I'd read up, had some books at home about it, about Vodun and Palo Mayombe, Lukumi, Ifa, Santeria, Candomblé, Hoodoo, Obeah, Shango. And I knew people that were into the Cuban side of that, practiced it, and their spiritismo, and a little bit, but I never encountered it myself. And I was brought up a Catholic. I'm a Catholic, and all of that stuff, I'm very, very, very fearful of it. And I have had some experience of being a bit scared by certain things in the past that happened that could have been possibly related to, malevolent spirits. I don't know. But when she told me this thing, and I became like increasingly obsessed by this woman, and obsessed and protective, and became very poorly. Now, I was coming off a breakup with the mother of my youngest son, which had devastated me. And there's a vulnerability there with me in terms of mental health, depression and anxiety and all of this sort of stuff that I've battled with since my teens. And I'm in a much, much, much better place now, but it's still part of my life, right? But I became poorly, man. And some really, really, really strange things went on during my time in that relationship. Unpleasant things, man, just weird. My behaviour, things that I was just not good. And I did try to help this girl. Took her to see a Babalawo, Cuban Babalawo, a Cuban priest of Ifa, which is a Yoruban religion that I knew. I thought this might help her. Help us get rid of whatever it is. And I started doing some of my own research, and I looked into a place called the Georges Devereux Centre in Paris, right? Obviously France, you've got a massive number of African immigrants there. And massive Islamic population. And in those two populations there are cultures that do have traditions of serious belief in magic, ancestors, magic, spirit worship, animism, jinns, putting hexes on people, all of that. So at the Jah Wobble Centre, I think it was started by an Egyptian psychiatrist that, a bit like Frantz Fanon, he looked into like ethno-cultural aspects of psychiatry and was encountering people that came to him saying that, or had been sent to him because they believed that they had been subjected to some bad medicine, possessions and all that. And rather than just dismiss them as being head cases, he looked into it and understood it. I don't know what his personal beliefs were. I might go back and read a bit more about him, but he accepted them as cases. But he developed a team of like Western specialists in psychology and mental health, Catholic priests, because quite a lot of the time, particularly in Africa, you'd have someone that's a Christian and has a traditional belief, or it could be syncretic, a bit of both. So you'd have a Catholic priest, you'd have like an Orthodox psychiatrist, and you'd have somebody from whatever particular, let's say, just a strain of traditional spiritual belief the person came from, and they'd work together. And I thought, I wonder if there's anything like that in Britain, because we've got similar things going on here with different communities. And even like in parts of the Caribbean, there's with Obeah and this and that and the other, different things, different kind of magic. Yeah, like that. But I didn't find anything. And I tried to put onto that, but failed. Then strangely, I'd started to develop a friendship with Benny Maupin, the great saxophonist and bass clarinet player that you may have heard on Bitches Brew, Miles Davis Bitches Brew. He spent a long time with Lee Morgan. He was originally with the original version of the Four Tops. He's from Detroit. And of course he was on Headhunters, part of that band with Herbie Hancock. And we developed a friendship, and really, in relation to our shared Buddhist practice, and had started an orchestra called the Human Revolution Orchestra, and we did some really amazing stuff. And he came over and he brought himself over, man, of his own volition, from his place near LA, and spent some time with me and did some gigs with us. Did that a couple of times, backwards and forwards, and he introduced me to Herbie and all that. Brilliant. And Benny was over, and his girlfriend came over from Paris, a woman from, I think, from Guadeloupe. And then we got talking, and it turned out that one of her best friends worked at the Jah Wobble Centre. I mean, so I told her about what was going on, and she tried to help. But again, this woman was just resistant to any kind of help. No. I'm not going to say... I'm not going to dismiss in its entirety the whole thing about the supernatural. I think that occult practices can have an impact on people. Let's just put it that way. And that it can manifest itself through or because of traumatic experiences, mental health, substance misuse, psychosis, all of that. But whatever method I tried, I couldn't help. And of course, I was also sinking. It was taking me down. And eventually, it severed my relationship with Wobble and the band. I left the band, kind of at this girl's, not saying she pressured me, but I was, under a spell, quite literally. So that was the end of the first stint. Incredible. It was like really weird. So years went by. Eventually, obviously, that relationship just disintegrated, and I moved back up to Huddersfield on the back of, I guess, breakdown. Moved back up here. Was playing a little bit. But it had all gone, you know. I'd lost everything, really. But I believe that Wobble was checking in on me via Neville Murray. Just maybe, I don't know, imagine just like, how's he doing sort of thing, what's going on, how's he behaving, what's he like. Neville sort of intimated that to me. And eventually I got a call from Wobble to do a recording that he was doing with Youth from Killing Joke. Offered me a session. I jumped at it, man. Went back and spent another, maybe was it 3 years, something like that, with the band. Did a few albums, toured. Amazing times, man. What I would say is that Wobble is possibly the only man, the only person in my musical life that has really said in a convincing way, I see you, and let it be known to me that it's not my fantasy or just my imagination tricking me into believing that I have actually got something artistic and musical to get out into the world. He helped me get out of my own way, which we talked about last week when we talked about Ingrid Jensen, and this morning I was listening to, is it Marcus Aubrey or Aubrey Marcus, one or the other, talking to Rick Rubin. Get it out, man. Get it out. And that's what I'm doing with these videos and my writing and my music now. I'm not here in the studio, I haven't got a podcast gear set up and all of that. I've not got a written script. I'm improvising. There'll be some good bits and some shabby bits. It's learning, but don't delay. Get it out. Wobble eradicated my nerves that I had playing. For years, I'd be shaking. I couldn't play, man. I could play, but when it came to it, I'd be shaking, dry mouth. I couldn't play. You know, and it was my inner life that prevented my musical career from being what it could have been. Not saying what that eventually was and what level or whatever, but I fell far short of what I was really capable of. I showed little glimpses, definitely. But Wobble, he saw that, man. And there was no, you know, he had no prejudices. Gary Crosby brought me a long way. But he had his biases, his prejudices, which kind of worked against me at times, really, in terms of getting me in the right positions for what I could bring forth. It was like playing me in the wrong role. Jazz Jamaica would have been my gig. Play Tam Tam, Jazz Jamaica, but he wouldn't do it because he did it to be a black guy. That's the truth. I eventually did do that band. I'm not talking about the All-Stars, I'm talking about a small group. And there were some guys within in that band that I'm pretty sure would have given him some grief for bringing me on board anyway. That white man in his band. Yeah, definitely. But Wobble, me and him, so much in common. It's the Irish culture, the working class thing. We've seen telly chuck through the window. And we have this sort of expansive outlook that just completely transcends our physical, cultural environment. You know, there's a connection, a deep karmic bond when this and, you know, the Wobble bear-like head. It's gone. There is something, and that something is a connection. We're of the same thing, but our physical samsara, our experiences here in this lifetime, meaning there's a lot that we can, and we didn't really talk like loads about it, you know. When you're with Wobble, he's the centre of attention, he's the man, and that's fair enough. It's his show, it's his thing. I'll be like that when it's mine. I'm like that now on here. It's his thing. But you can have a chat with him. But he's more, he sees it, I think. He sees it, he takes it in, and he might not say it to you. He's pulled me a few times. You know, as in pulled me up, and he's never given me like a bollocking. But he said, look, I can see where you're going, mate, because he'd been there. And he sussed what sort of character I am. He knew before I did. He knows now. And I hope that him seeing what I'm trying to do now isn't, I know what he's doing and it's going to end up as a, you know. What I can say is that I'm playing music now. I'm writing. I'm being myself. I'm not asking to be ordained. I'm not asking for permission. I'm not even asking myself. I'm getting it out there. Doing it. Wobble massively helped me do that. I missed out on the last American tour that they did. I've been to America, I've studied in America. I studied on a summer school back in 1992, Winter Marsalis, Joe Lovano, Gunter Schuller, his son Ed Schuller, Victor Lewis was there. Fellow students were like Seamus Blake, Brad Turner, Mercedes Rossi, Dan Reiser, Dylan Vanderschiff, Howard Britts. Heavy players, right? But I've never gigged there. And Wobble sorted this tour out to go to America, do some nice gigs, and record with Bill Laswell. And I know, he basically told me he wanted me right up front and centre on that, right? Because I was reaching like a peak of my abilities at that point. Definitely. I was playing some rubbish at times and over-reliant on, right at the end, over-reliant on playing for effects and what have you. And I think some of that was to make up for lack of, I peaked. I needed something new, something different to do. And I didn't have the harmonic language and physical ability to execute some of the things that I would have wanted to do if I was going to take it somewhere. So I jacked it in. And I didn't go to America. And I didn't go and do the album with Wobble, with Laswell. That was it. But it has been an immense experience playing, touring with that man and those guys. Not just the current lot, people before man, Clive, Neville, even Chris on guitar when I first met him. Wicked man, loved his, really liked his playing. Keiko, Amy, Kumiko, what a vibe. No idiots around the band. There was I'll leave that. We don't need to talk about Millie. I'm not sure how that would have gone, to be honest. He's one of these little I'd have either cleaned him out really neatly, clinically, right, bang bang, or he could have got really nasty. He's one of these little sort of dirty little bald-headed, nasty fighters, I reckon. But we don't need to talk about that. So Jah Wobble, John Wardle. Yeah, man. I hope he sees this. I hope he knows that. Love you.